What's up, y'all? AJ Simmons here, checking in for another great interview for you guys. Today, I have a guy who some may call a legend in the industry, Mr. Ed Selkow. How you doing today, Ed?
Hey AJ, how are you, man? So glad to be seeing you, and welcome from the electronic janitorial closet here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, and I got to get a disclaimer out, guys. So, Ed, as you guys know, we're in the middle of this COVID thing. A lot of stuff happening. We're on the front line of this thing as cleaning business owners. So, if Ed has to run in the middle of this stuff, if phones start blowing up, we completely understand. But I did want to throw that disclaimer out there, Ed. So, but thank you for taking the time for joining us again.
We really are live, okay? So
Right.
There you go.
Right. So for those who don't know who Ed is, by the way, go ahead and share us a little bit about your background and how long you've been in the industry and those sorts of things like that.
Yeah, sure. Just real quick, I was a second time through college student, and had bought a couple of cleaning accounts and just to get me back through college a second time. And what happened was, along the way, I decided that this was a real business. And specifically what happened was, I read something from a fellow named Theodore Levitt, a professor from Harvard's Business School. And by the way, I've written about this in my blog. So if you go to my blog, you can read the whole story. But essentially, from what he said, what I understood was that this was a real business. This was in the 1970s, before most folks would admit that this was a real business. So that was really how I started. Late 70s, middle to late 70s. I was swinging a mop down in Miami, Florida, and so now here we are, like 45 years later, and I've been involved with 8 startups. 2 of them were national, for equity investors. And I have been a senior executive in 7 different national companies. So that's just a little bit about my background as far as the industry goes.
Yeah, and I can tell you that's definitely a quick glance over, but we'll dive into it in a minute. And so, since you've been in the industry so long, like what made you stay in this industry versus, switching over to what some might call a sexier business?
Well, first of all, let me just jump back for a second about the article called "Production Line Approach to Service." Okay, and that was really what got my attention, was that it was possible to run a service company in the same way that a production line is run. And so and I was an engineering student, so that made an awful lot of sense to me. And so that was the initial decision to jump in full time. But listen, what's kept me in all these years is the cash flow. The way that there's repetitive money coming in every month, and there's really not a whole lot to compare it to. The closest thing that I've seen is that there are insurance agents who get money when people re-up on their. Okay, and so some insurance agents, can make a sale and then be getting money, 5-10 years later. But right. that was really what's kept me in the business all these years.
That's awesome, man. So let me ask you this now. We kind of got to dive into some of your expertise a little bit. What are some of the mistakes that you think you're seeing, other cleaning business owners make here recently, or these days, rather?
There's a couple of real big ones. I would say that the biggest one, AJ, is that people come into the business without a plan. Okay, that's probably the biggest critical mistake I see. What happened is that in the small business press, the magazines, Inc. magazine, used to be Entrepreneur magazine, Work at Home magazine. In all these magazines, for a number of years, we kept seeing these articles about, all you have to do is buy a mop and you will be a millionaire. Okay. And so what happened is that thousands and thousands of people have entered the business believing that lie. And what happens is that, you know, they get in from one way or another. They will have an account. They'll get an account, okay, and that'll be from friends or relatives or somebody from within their network. But then they're stuck, all right. And so that's why we see the you know, the constant questions about, gee, how do I and they're really basic questions that would have been answered had you had a business plan. And I'm not talking about anything real difficult. I'm talking about a 2-page plan about what we're going to do, where we're going to do it, and who we're going to do it to. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So that's that's a big one. That's probably the biggest one as far as startups go.
Yeah, that's definitely a big one, because I always tell people that they jump into it and they're like, well, I don't know exactly what I want to do, or what type of customer I want to go after, or how to bid, or, you know, and it's like, I understand that, wow, you might come into this and you might not know how to bid, of course, because it's brand new to you. But if you know the type of customer that you're going after, and you kind of understand at least math, money, right? So you should at least have an idea, at least do your homework and your research too. And all of that goes into planning for the business. So I think that's an excellent point, Ed. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you know, the second one is a huge bit of misinformation is that you don't need any money. And the fact of the matter is that to any business, cash is the gasoline that moves the vehicle of small business. Okay. So while it is possible, you know, to start with, you know, like relatively small amounts of money, it's more difficult not to have any money. But once again, it is possible. But it's possible in the same way that it's also possible to walk from New York to Los Angeles. Okay, you don't want to do that, man. You know, I mean, you don't want to do that. You got better ways to spend your life, you know. So.
Right. It's funny because my marketing guy, I hate to throw him on the bus here, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it real quick. He'll forgive me. So he gave me some topics to speak about here for upcoming videos, and one of the topics was how to start a cleaning business with no money. And I was like, look, man, I can't do it because it's not true. You know what I mean? I could easily, I guess, finagle my way and say, well, all you got to do is go secure an account first, make them, I guess, prepay you if you can find one to do that, and then use that money to go buy your equipment. But it's like, really, realistically, we know that's not really, you know, a thing that's really gonna happen to most people. Like, if you happen to pull that off, lucky you. But the realistic thing is, it does take some money or some time or some resources to make some money. Period. So.
Absolutely, yeah. No, yeah, and it's just one of the kind of the main lies that beginners are told, and new folks in the business come to believe, and it's just really a shame, because it's folks are misled, and I've seen people that I mean, wind up in dreadful trouble for themselves and their family from a financial standpoint, you know. And you know, and what that is that's a downhill thing. Business is no good. It creates tension in home. Now you've got a problem in the family. Now you got people under pressure, and I mean, it's like a snowball running downhill for bad stuff to happen. So, and that's really the sad part is what happens to families and stuff like that.
Absolutely, man. And so I got to ask you this too. I asked you about the cleaning business owners and mistakes that they're making. How about us mentor guys, I guess, us influencers that, you know, we get up here and we do these videos? Is there anything that you've been hearing, like in particular, that kind of just make you cringe a little bit? Is there anything you can share on that?
There's a bunch of it that makes me cringe, AJ. That's why I really appreciated you. You know, there's a couple of things. One is that there is that this looks like this is a growth industry, and so what we have is folks coming into the business of helping people build their cleaning companies with no experience at all. You know, and so what we have is we've got some software people, we've got some chemical sales people, you know, and they're all going to help you build your company when they themselves have never done it themselves. And the way that I look at it, AJ, and this is why I appreciate you. Look, if you were going to learn to skydive, jump out of an airplane with the parachute. Okay, who would you rather learn from? Would you like to learn from somebody who's made one successful jump, okay, and survived, or
Right.
would you rather have somebody that's done it a couple of times,
Right.
And so that's one of the that's one of the criteria. The other one is that there's an awful lot of misinformation that is just recycled around and around. And what happens is that there is an echo chamber of Google. So somebody will say something wrong, it'll get picked up by Google, and then all of a sudden it's in 5 or 6 different places, and so that's a real problem. There are probably only a third of the folks that are involved in helping cleaning companies grow are actually qualified to do so. You and I are here together because you're one of them. I recognized immediately that you're one of them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, because, I was afraid to do this. Originally, I was, afraid to put myself, I guess, in this position or prop myself up as somebody who's giving advice because, even though I have experience, but it's like, I'm still young, so I feel like my experience might not be as long as somebody like, say, of you. And so I was afraid, number one, the guys like you would give me some pushback, but then also number two, that maybe I wasn't qualified. So I do appreciate you even acknowledging me and respecting me and seeing my point of view on things. I appreciate it, Ed.
Yeah, well, I've joined up with a couple of other veterans in the industry, and so we have something called the Janitorial Growth Alliance, and together we've got like 120 years. But the fact of the matter is that there's all kinds of room because there's all kinds of people. There are different personalities that mesh with other possibilities. I've had my share of consulting clients who I really didn't get along with. I mean, we weren't clicking, you know what I mean? And it's real simple. It's like, look, you pay me to tell you what to do, and then you don't do it, and then you come back at me and say, well, it didn't work. You didn't do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the issues. I'm really not concerned because what will happen is we're seeing them come and go.
Yeah.
We've already seen a couple of them come and go,
Yeah. And that's what I try to say, even with the cleaning businesses themselves. A lot of people always ask me, well, isn't the market saturated? A lot of companies, I said, look, a lot of these companies are fly by night. They're just in here for a quick buck. They're not actually trying to rebuild a company, and they won't make it, so don't even sweat them. As long as you make sure that you're professional, as long as you know what you're doing and dress professional and speak and give a firm handshake, look people in the eye, know how to listen, you know what I mean? Know your stuff and you'll be just fine. So yeah. I definitely agree with that 100%. Now, and I heard you speak about partnering with other, professionals in the industry as far as consulting and everything. Could you kind of expound upon the different things that you do have to offer? Because I looked at your LinkedIn and I see that you have a bunch of different things going on. So if you kind of speak on those things.
Well, what was real interesting is now I've worked with one of them for a number of years. He had sold a company that was doing in excess of $10 million, had been in the business for 40 plus years. And that was Mark Anderson. And then there was Sharon Cowan, okay, who also has been around for about a decade. She's been helping cleaning service owners. And what was really interesting, AJ, was that the three of us had completely different experiences. Okay. And so what we're able to bring to the table is kind of a 360-degree vision or a look into the industry, because we did not do the same things. A lot of my experience was in government contracting and great big buildings downtown. Those skyscrapers downtown. That was an awful lot of my experience. Mark had some great experience in some wonderful niches, corporate campuses. He did Microsoft. He had the Microsoft account, but then in addition to that, he was involved also successfully in food processing, data centers, critical environments, and let me see, food, critical environment. Oh, hotels was the other one. They would go in and manage everything inside of a hotel. And that was completely different than the experience that myself and Sharon had. you know? So, you know, when it gets real good is when we disagree.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, and we do. I mean, we will, you know, and what happens is that when we're disagreeing and we're talking through it, what you wind up with is you wind up with a vision of the subject or a look at the subject from a 360-degree angle. You can kind of see all parts of it. So.
Right. Definitely. Could you kind of speak about like I know you were doing some work with robots, cleaning robots or something like that? Could you kind of speak on that a little bit?
Sure, sure. Well, this has been a long time for me. I was an engineering student when I got into the business, and what happened was that I had an opportunity to attend. It was the first international robotics exhibition. Okay, and I was intrigued, and it was right where I live, and so what I did was I went to this convention specifically to talk to as many people as I could about how long and what would it take for us to have cleaning robots.
Right.
Okay. So what happened from there was, you know, from that experience, I wrote an article about cleaning robots about 1984. Published an article about cleaning robots back in 1984. And so I've been steady watching what's happening in the tech world with regard to robotics in the cleaning industry for a very, very long time. When it looked like there was an opportunity with at the time was a top-notch technical partner that had been in the business for a very, very, very long time. What we did was we launched Scientific Maintenance, which was the first. We were the first robotic facility services company. You know, one of the things over 45 years and doing all the things that I've done, what I've learned is, you know, I don't mind failing. I mean, I don't like it, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because if you don't take a shot, there's no chance. Okay. Right. If you take a shot, and I've taken some shots and I've won. Okay. But I've taken some shots and I've lost too. Okay. What happened with Scientific Maintenance was we had an incredible team. We were going to be, one of the things that we were going to be doing was we were going to be using a robot from another company that we were going to bring into the business. But then part of our business plan was to create our own robot. And the one that we had paid the most attention to was a robot that could empty desk side trash cans. Okay. And we had the engineering firm to do it, who had worked on, you know, who had worked on like NASA projects and stuff. I mean, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant engineering team. And frankly, you know, I talked a little bit earlier about not having the money. Okay. Yeah. So we launched a cleaning service looking for $4 million of investment capital.
Right.
Okay. So, and through a series of missteps and accidents on our part, we were unsuccessful. We never did get it off the ground. And so the robot that we had planned for the desk side trash cans went by the wayside. Now, I have stayed as, you know, in the tech part of the cleaning industry, and real excited about what's happening now because I just recently got with a company that has solved the problem. And I know we're going to cover this in a little bit, but we've got there's some really exciting stuff happening for the cleaning industry in terms of robotics. And we're going to cover that a little bit later. I know you got a question about that.
Actually, I'll say while we're here, might as well dive into it. So I was wondering, so with these, I mean, do they, are they doing like, are you thinking that at some point robots will get to the point where they can clean the whole facility? I mean, dusting and wiping down horizontal surfaces and dumping trash. You're obviously dumping trash, mopping floors, sweep everything.
Well, what'll happen is that there'll always be human beings around the robots, and there are always going to be capabilities that whatever the technology is, there are always going to be instances that where there'll be tasks that are necessary that the robots can't perform. So that's where the people will stop in. Like, well, like for instance, today, right now, we can get things vacuumed, okay, but we can't do the edge vacuuming.
Right.
Okay, so a person's got to go and do the edges.
Gotcha. Okay, because the reason I was asking is because I know a lot of people will watch this and listen and say, well, wait a minute, if robots coming into the industry, then maybe this isn't going to be a great industry to invest in for the long term. But my thought process on this, and I'm not informed at all, I feel like you probably are, but my thought process is, okay, well, as a cleaning company owner, I'll just buy the robot, put them to work, and then maybe have some mechanics, because that's what the cleaners would turn into, basically, is mechanics at that point. And some mechanics will be on hand as well to, service the robots. So am I kind of close about
it? Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's funny you should say that, because that was part of our business plan. Here locally, I served on the board of an amazing outfit that took kids at risk and taught them computer skills. Okay, and just one of the great organizations on the planet. Okay, and one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to incorporate robotics in there, and so we had some discussions about the repair and maintenance of service robots. And so we actually purchased a domain name, and I had meetings with the superintendent of schools of one of the largest school systems in the country about having a program, kind of like, it'll be like auto mechanics,
right?
Okay, where it doesn't take, it doesn't take a 4-year degree. Okay, now the great big industrial robots that the like say the auto manufacturers use, they're big enough and expensive enough where they have to have degreed engineers to maintain those and so forth. But service robots are a different story, and that's really where the big growth is in the service robot end of it. So that was actually part of our business plan, was to have a well, it was what we called was the Institute of Service Robot Maintenance and Repair.
Absolutely.
So that was part of it. But one of the exciting things is that there's a new player that came in. They're not new, but they're new to the cleaning robot industry, and they've changed the entire they've changed the entire algorithm of how robots are going to be adopted into the cleaning industry.
Gotcha. And so that leads me, so now I got to play devil's advocate just a little bit, because I know I have my theory on how the robots could be used for cleaning business owners. But what would stop, our customers just from buying the robot themselves and maintaining it in-house? What's your thoughts on that?
That's a very astute analysis, AJ. Okay, nothing. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that we have to stay up on it. Okay, in order to keep up. Now, I'm not sure exactly how much of our audience is familiar with the history of the industry, but essentially at one point there was no cleaning services. What there was that there was window cleaning companies. And during World War II, what happened was everybody went into the war effort. Everybody signed up for the military, everybody, okay? And so the people that took care of buildings and cleaned buildings were essentially superintendents. Yeah, can I put you on hold? I'm gonna put you on hold, man. Just keep everybody going here just for a sec.
I got you. So we were saying how like what would stop the customer from just buying the machine, and Xing us out the equation. And you were saying how basically that's why we need to stay ahead of the game.
That's why we need to stay ahead of the game. There's no two ways about it. And if you understand the history of the industry, what happened was at one point there was no cleaning industry. There was window cleaners. And in World War II, everybody went off to the war. Okay. And what happened was that the window cleaners were invited inside to replace the in-house superintendents of buildings. Okay, so city folks know all about the super. Okay, I'm a city boy, and so that's why my dad did not have a screwdriver or a hammer in the house. All you did was you called the super who lived down in the basement.
Right.
Okay, so that's all there was to it. So what happened was that when all those folks went off to fight in World War II, it left a labor shortage. It was a dreadful labor shortage, and so the window cleaners came in. So we went from window cleaning to janitorial.
Gotcha.
And then in the late 60s, early 70s, we went from janitorial. Okay, we picked up security guard service.
Right.
Okay. And then American Building Maintenance, they were the 500-pound gorilla in our industry. What they started doing was they started looking at things like lighting maintenance,
right,
okay, and mechanical maintenance, because they were already in the building and it made sense. Okay,
right.
So our business, in a relatively short period of time, our industry has already changed, and all we're doing is we are at the front door of just one more change in our industry.
Right.
Okay. And this is going to be a technical, this leap is going to be a technical situation. So the folks that, are all fine with their skills of running a single disc floor machine, it's not enough.
Right.
It is not enough. It is not enough. It's not going to feed you in the future for very long. Okay.
Absolutely.
So what'll happen is that we need to stay on top of this and in front of the whole situation. And what we have to do, you know how there's an awful lot of folks that it's their sales and marketing ploy to say, well, we partner with their clients. Okay.
Right.
Okay, and what they mean is that we're gonna steal while we do our best to pick their pocket. That's really what we mean. Okay, but now what we're talking about is going to be a true partnership between us and the building, not managers. Okay, we'll be dealing with the building managers, but it's really for the building owners. It's really for the building owners, because the building owners are the ones that are going to see the biggest advantage to robotics.
Right.
Okay. Now, let me just explain. Okay. The value of a building, one of the factors that goes into the value of a building, which is something that the owner of the building cares about. Okay. One of the things is has to do with operating expenses.
Right.
Okay. So if you reduce operating expenses, which we are able to do with robotics, okay, what happens is that the value of the building goes up.
Okay.
Okay. And so that's a real big issue to folks that own buildings. Okay.
That's huge. That's huge right there, because that basically gives us a roadmap of exactly what we need to be doing right now and thinking going forward in order to stay afloat in this industry. Because I think, like I was saying, like people might be fearful, like, okay, I don't want to start a cleaning company because robots are coming to take their place. No, you just need to make sure that you're able to pivot and get ahead of the curve as this thing starts to evolve. That's all.
Well, it's starting now. It's starting now. Yesterday, I just did an interview with one of the largest companies on the planet, who's rolling out cleaning robots in a brand new business model that will allow small companies to use cleaning robots in their buildings. Now, this is brand new. This has not been the case in the past. Right. In the past, okay, and I'm talking about very recent past. You were talking about coughing up somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 for a cleaning robot. It's a lot of money. Okay. Yeah. And so the payback is, first of all, the building has to be big enough. Okay. And the dollars had to work out. Okay. Yeah. And so what happened was that the most efficient way to use cleaning robots were in great big buildings. Okay. Well, that's changing now with the business model coming down.
Right.
And so small companies will be able to use robots. And here's the exciting part is they're not going to have to own them.
Right.
They're not going to have to own these robots. Okay. They will be owned and maintained by the company.
Okay. This is interesting. And what's funny is because I'm supposed to be the young guy, the forward thinker, but here you are schooling me about the robot industry, so that's funny to me. Yeah, but so speaking of making the dollars work, I know that you have a course on bidding, and I wanted you to see if you can kind of, obviously you can't teach us the course here today, we don't have time for that, but if you can share just a few tips on bidding and what, I guess.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. Okay. Now, AJ, what I want you to know is that I have said this enough to where I just need to get this tattooed right here on my head.
Right.
Okay. Okay. But here's the deal. Okay. The business of cleaning, and I hope everybody's writing this down. The business of cleaning is only about numbers. The business of cleaning is only about numbers.
Okay.
Okay. So when you see all these questions about, gee, how much for this and how much for that, one time in a Facebook group, and it was like, look, I looked at the same question from 10 different people, in just 2 days, and so finally what I did was I said, look, I just opened a little breakfast and lunch restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if anybody in the group can tell me, how much should I charge for a couple of eggs scrambled, order of grits, and some toast? How much should I charge?
Mm-hmm.
But can you imagine anybody in the restaurant business trying to figure out how much to charge for, some scrambled eggs, order of grits? You know what I mean? So,
right.
Okay. So the first thing is that to understand the business of cleaning, that it's all about numbers. Okay. So some of the beginning numbers are are connected to the building itself. How big is the building? How many items are there inside there to clean? Okay. And we really, this is really where my beginning studies in engineering really helped out, because I understood the whole thing about numbers. Okay. But it's terribly important to understand that this is all about numbers. And one of the biggest mistakes I see is that folks don't understand about measuring the areas that have to be cleaned.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we used to have the wheel, and folks still use the wheel. Okay. Yeah. But now there's digital tools to measure. But there's also tricks that all us old people used to do.
Yeah.
We would measure a building by counting the ceiling tiles.
Yep.
Okay. And not only that, but I mean, if you bid enough buildings, okay, you can be walking and talking with the property manager, okay, and they're not going to see you counting the ceiling tiles.
Right.
You can carry on a conversation and measure the building. Okay. So that's the beginning point. Okay. That's a hard and fast number that can't be, you can't play with that number. Okay. Which is the area to be cleaned and the items to be cleaned. Okay. So from there's a couple of other numbers. All right. It costs a certain amount of money to get that cleaned. Mm-hmm. And it's based on how much time. Once again, we're looking at a number. Okay, so how many numbers are we talking about just this far? Okay, we're talking about the numbers involved in the size of the building, the items to be cleaned in the building. Okay, and from there. Well, 1 minute. It's crazy, but I mean, this is all, this is all critical stuff. Yep. And besides that, like I said, man, I mean, we got folks that are out there making $100 and $200 an hour, which I mean,
exactly, you got to get that.
yeah. No, I mean, I'm tickled to death to see that,
Yeah, and to me, this is kind of reviving our industry a little bit, because now it's getting to the point where we can kind of like. A lot of times they can't tell that, like, for example, like I just heard you say that you guys were going to do I guess for short, COVID clean and disinfectant clean, but without the electrostatic spray, you're going to do spray and rag. So it's like, okay, well, how can the customer really tell the difference? Because technically that's kind of what we were doing anyway, but it's just a little bit more detailed now. So it's like, to me, it's helping the industry as a whole anyway.
Well, yeah, yeah, and we should probably talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
But one of the one 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 of the things that's going to come out of this COVID-19 thing. Now, you got to understand, I've been screaming about disinfection for 10 years now on my
Yeah.
private clients. I'm
Yeah.
telling them, okay, because the cleaning business, the important part of the cleaning business has to do with revenue per man hour. Revenue per man hour. An hour of labor produces how much revenue? Okay, that's a key metric for us. Okay, one of the things that's that's going to come out of this whole COVID-19 deal is that disinfection is going to become as common as carpet cleaning. You know,
That's huge. That's huge.
yeah, that is huge, man. That is huge. So no two ways about it. All right, again, I apologize, but you know, we really are live. That's
Right.
the truth. We really are live.
Right. Yep.
During a pandemic. We're live during a pandemic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're on the front line. I stole that line from Ricky, Regalado, but he always said that, and I like it. We are on the front line. So.
Listen, it doesn't get any more on the front line than us right now. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And speaking of disinfectants, by the way, I wanted to get your perspective on this because we talked before about green cleaning. And so I just wanted to let you talk on air a little bit about your perspective on that.
Okay. Real simple. I headed up marketing for a government services contractor, and all we did was government work. Okay. This was a national deal. We would, in any place where there was a big enough government contract, we would bid it. Some we won, and that's how we operated. But we operated throughout the country. So one time, I'm doing an RFP for a bunch of schools in a school district down in New Orleans, Louisiana, after Katrina. Okay. Now, what was in the RFP was there was an awful lot of discussion about green cleaning. Okay. But part of it, and I almost fell off of my chair, was that disinfectants were prohibited. Disinfectants were prohibited in New Orleans after Katrina.
Very interesting.
Now, this is somebody that doesn't care about human life. This is somebody that does not care about human life. Okay. Now, as I'm doing this bid for this school system, okay, what comes across my computer screen is a story about a 17-year-old kid that died from MRSA that he caught in his locker room in high school. Okay, the high school was closed. The whole thing had to be disinfected, but the kid was dead. Okay, now you got children.
I do too.
I got children, and I absolutely cannot even imagine the agony of losing a child. I can't wrap my brain around that, man.
Right.
You know, and the fact of the matter is that school had been cleaned, but it had been cleaned improperly.
Correct.
Okay. So what happened was, and I've known this for a long time. Okay. It's just that when I came on the scene, all of a sudden I kind of like showed up on the internet and I was all over the place. All right. And what happened was I wound up in a battle with a couple of the bigwigs because what I maintained was that the janitorial industry, what we do, we are the front line in public health.
Yeah.
Okay. So listen, it's you know, we have to take care of the environment. There's no two ways about it. There's no two ways about it. You know, we used to do horrible stuff. Like we used to throw stripping solution down storm drains, which would go into the groundwater. Okay. But we didn't know. Okay. When we find out though, it's kind of like, look, that's insane, man. We're poisoning ourselves.
Right.
We're pouring stripper down a storm drain that's going to wind up in our water, in our drinking water. Okay. So we're not stupid or crazy.
Right.
Okay. But when there are substances that are going to make us sick or kill us, We want them dead. We want to kill the germs and viruses that can kill us. It's as simple as that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm from New York City, so I've got kind of a, from time to time, I don't say things in the right way. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Hold 1 second.
Yeah.
Hey. 50. Oh, payout's $1,500. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. You got it, man. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, I'm laughing because you can see me struggle a lot trying to find the correct, proper terms. I do my best to try to be at least close to politically correct as possible. Right.
We ain't politically correct. I'm telling
Right,
you.
right.
We ain't.
I don't think I do a good job at hiding it anyway. Your style is fine with me. Yeah. So, but anyway, I was just about wrapping it up. So I was going to ask you. So first off, as I always say on my YouTube channel, I always tell people, listen, I don't claim to be the cleaning guru. I am not that guy. I happen to have a successful cleaning company simply because I knew numbers. Okay. I knew how to do business. I knew how to treat people and, manage people. Ed, on the other hand, he knows a lot. So Ed, how can, some people follow you and find you and follow your journey if they want to get mentorship? Share all those details with us if you don't mind.
Well, first of all, it's real easy. If you just put my name in Google, I think I'm down to about 8 solid pages now. So used to be 10 pages. You stuck my name in Google, it was 10 solid pages about me. But I think I'm down to 8 pages. But there is the janitorial growth solutions. Okay. And also there is the janitorial subcontracting network.
Okay.
And so those are the two ways to get a hold of me. If you put either one of those terms in Google, you will wind up coming to me.
All right. You mind giving a quick overview about what each one does?
Yeah, sure. Janitorial Growth Solutions is the group or the platform where myself, Mark Anderson, Sharon Cowan, and what we're doing is we're building up some very heavy duty experts in that group. Okay. One of the things that we're excited about in there, and I'll be doing some video about this, is something called Beyond the Basics for BSCs. And this is really not for beginners. This is folks that are well on the way. And what we're going to do in there is we're going to talk about the nexus, or where commercial real estate, the cleaning business, and technology all comes together, which is critical. That's important. Okay. Not really for beginners. Okay. Now, the Janitorial Subcontracting Network is the open marketplace that I had started almost 10 years ago, where local janitorial services can connect with regional and national maintenance management companies. Okay. There's a lot to that. There's good and bad about subcontracting. If it's done correctly, it's good. It can be done incorrectly, and then it's bad. And then what we did was we've actually gone past our own. We've actually gone past the social media sites, and so we have our own platform now. So Janitorial Growth Solutions is in a very small way our own Facebook.
Right.
Okay, it's kind of like our own Facebook. Now, the subcontracting network is a situation where what happened was it was necessary for me to become more involved. And so what happens in our what we call Janitorial Subcontracting Network version 2.0, the one thing that's different about that is that once a month you got to buy Ed a cup of coffee.
Right.
So there is a cost to it, but let me just say this. Okay. All right. We have put out, just in the last couple of days, we have put out thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to people in that network on this high profit disinfection work, which we're just tickled to death. You know, just to see our people making that kind of good money. Because look, man, there's an awful lot of jobs out there where there ain't good money, and this is just really, really good money. And this is where we go to make those connections. So I go to the network, a city will pop up. As a matter of fact, as soon as we get done, I'm going to be looking in another city, okay, for another subcontractor, and we're just going to take it from there. But that's the two things where I can be. Where I can be reached: subcontracting network and janitorial growth solutions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I almost forgot to ask you the famous question before I wrapped it up. I ask everybody this: if there's somebody on the sideline right now and we didn't scare them half to death already, and they're thinking about joining or starting a cleaning company, what would you say to that person to kind of give them that little push?
You know, it really depends on what their skill set is. Okay, there's some people that are going to do just great launching on their own, but they're going to be people that have some, a little bit of business background. Okay, and then there's an awful lot of people in the business that are having a hard time that really shouldn't be in the business. Okay, let me give you an example. If you can't read, you're not going to make it. You're not going to survive. You're just not going to survive. And it's unfortunate to, to be dealing with folks that, just really don't have a shot. So it really depends on what your skill set is. The second thing is that what is your network like? In other words, how many folks do you know in town? Because that's a big part of it. Okay, is networking. Okay, so if you're somebody that lots of folks like, okay, you're probably going to do pretty good just by, getting a launch with folks that you know. Okay. The third thing is to understand that there is numbers here, that it's about the numbers. Okay. Like I said, there's two tattoos I'm interested in. Okay. One is the one on top of my forehead. Okay. That says that the business of cleaning is only about numbers.
Okay.
Okay. And that second one's going to be a neck tattoo, but it's going to be a nice Oxford shirt with a tie.
Okay. Right. Yeah, that's funny. So, all right, Ed. Well, I appreciate you so much, man, for coming up here. And what's funny too is because I try to bait you into, giving somebody that push, but instead you didn't fall for the bait, and I love that because you told the truth. And sometimes the truth is better than actually not sometimes, all the time. The truth is the best answer anyway, which is simply, if you can't read, maybe you should start there, because I can tell you now that was one of my key advantages was the fact that I will read and I would take my time and make sure I comprehend every single thing in there. And I can also speak very well written. My written communication skills are very high. And that definitely pushed me well further along than a lot of my competition, simply because they can do read or write well. So great point on that. So I appreciate that honesty right there.
Well, listen, man, anybody that only gives you good news about the business, don't listen to. Okay. That's one reason why I appreciated you, is that you always spoke the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I've seen you, man, you were telling the truth, and that's rare for folks that do what you and I do, helping cleaning services.
Absolutely. And I think that's why I have a following. I think that's why you have a following as well, because we just keep it 100, as we say. So.
Well, listen, I want to do this again.
Absolutely. We definitely
have to do it again, man. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, AJ. That was fun. Thank you. Take care now. Bye-bye.